Picture this: you're sitting across from someone you really like, the conversation flowing effortlessly until suddenly your mind starts racing. Did I laugh too loud at their joke? Was that last comment awkward? What if they think I'm coming on too strong? Before you know it, you're trapped in a spiral of overthinking, missing the chance to simply enjoy the moment. Sound familiar? You're not alone. In dating, our brains often turn against us, transforming excitement into anxiety and connection into calculation. But what if there was a way to silence that chaotic inner voice and approach relationships with clarity and confidence? That's exactly what Stoicism offers, an ancient philosophy with timeless tools to cut through the noise of overthinking and bring you back to what truly matters. The Stoics, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, weren't writing about dating apps or first date jitters, but their insights into human nature are shockingly relevant today. They understood that suffering doesn't come from the events themselves, but from our judgments about them. When you obsess over whether they'll text back or replay every word you said, you're not reacting to reality, you're reacting to the stories your mind creates. Stoicism teaches us to separate fact from fiction, to focus only on what we can control, and to meet uncertainty with calm resilience. Imagine walking into every date free from the weight of what-ifs, fully present, unshaken by outcomes. That's the power of these principles applied to modern romance. This isn't about suppressing emotions or playing it cool, it's about rewiring your mindset to dating from a place of strength, not fear. Overthinking steals joy, distorts perception, and keeps you stuck in your head instead of connecting authentically. But the Stoic secrets we're about to explore will help you break that cycle. You'll learn how to embrace discomfort, reframe rejection, and cultivate a mindset where every interaction, whether it leads to love or a lesson, feels like progress. These aren't quick fixes, they're lifelong practices that transform not just how you date, but how you live. Ready to ditch the overthinking and step into a calmer, more confident approach to relationships. Let's begin. The first and most powerful Stoic secret for eliminating overthinking in dating is this: focus relentlessly on what you actually control. The ancient Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, the simple but life-changing idea that some things are up to us, while others simply aren't. In dating, this means recognizing the stark difference between your own behavior and how someone else chooses to respond. You can control sending a thoughtful message, showing up as your authentic self, or asking engaging questions. What you can't control, whether they reply quickly, how they interpret your humor, or if they feel the same spark. Every moment spent agonizing over those uncontrollables is energy stolen from what truly matters: your own actions and mindset. Think about how much mental real estate gets wasted replaying scenarios that haven't even happened. What if they think I'm too eager because I double-texted? What if my date last night was secretly bored? Here's the Stoic reframe: those questions don't serve you. Imagine two versions of yourself on a date. One is fully present, listening deeply, and radiating calm because they've accepted that attraction can't be forced. The other is trapped in analysis paralysis, filtering every word through a lens of perceived judgment. Who's more likely to forge a real connection? The answer is obvious, yet we keep handing over our peace of mind to factors outside our influence. Let's make this practical. Say you match with someone whose profile genuinely intrigues you. The Stoic approach: craft a message that reflects your curiosity and personality, then send it without attachment to the outcome. What often happens instead? We send the message, then immediately switch to detective mode, dissecting reply times or overanalyzing punctuation. But here's the truth: their response or lack thereof isn't a verdict on your worth. It's information about their current priorities, mood, or compatibility, none of which you control. The moment you internalize that, dating becomes lighter. You start seeing unanswered messages not as rejections, but as filters guiding you toward better alignment. This principle transforms rejection from a source of anxiety into a neutral event. If someone ghosts you or says they're not interested, the Stoic doesn't spiral into self-doubt. They ask, did I act with integrity? Was I true to myself? If the answer is yes, the outcome is irrelevant. This isn't about suppressing disappointment, it's about refusing to let external validation dictate your self-worth. The more you practice this focus, the more dating becomes an exercise in self-discovery rather than approval-seeking. You'll stop trying to perfectly curate every interaction and start enjoying the messy, beautiful process of getting to know someone. The beauty of this secret is how it spills over into every area of life. When you train yourself to invest energy only where it counts, you stop fearing awkward silences, missteps, or mismatched expectations. You begin to trust that the right connections will flourish when you focus on showing up as your best self, not when you try to engineer every detail. That's the ultimate freedom, knowing that your value isn't on the line with every swipe, date, or text thread. Your only job is to act with intention and let go of the rest. Here's how to turn Stoic philosophy into daily practice, because knowing the dichotomy of control isn't enough. You need to train your mind to live it. Start with this simple exercise. After every date or meaningful interaction, open a notebook and divide the page into 2 columns. Label the first what I controlled and the second what I didn't. In the first column, list your actions, how you prepared, the questions you asked, whether you listened attentively. In the second, jot down everything else, their reactions, their level of interest, even the chemistry you hoped for. This isn't just reflection, it's rewiring. You'll begin to notice patterns, like how much mental energy you waste on the second column while neglecting the power of the first. Take it further by adding a third column, how I can improve within my control. Maybe you interrupted them mid-story because you were nervous, or you avoided sharing a hobby you love out of fear they'd judge it. These aren't flaws, they're opportunities. The Stoics called this prosauch, or attention to the self. It's not about self-criticism, it's about aligning your actions with your values. Over time, this practice shifts your focus from "did they like me?" to "did I show up as the person I want to be?" That's the essence of mental discipline in dating, measuring success by your own standards, not by unpredictable outcomes. Let's make this real with an example. Imagine you went on a great date, but they haven't responded to your follow-up text. Your old mindset spirals. Was I too eager? Did I say something wrong? The journaling exercise breaks that cycle. In the controlled column, you might write, I sent a genuine message thanking them for the conversation. That's it, the lack of reply, that belongs in the didn't control column. The difference seems small, but it's revolutionary. You're no longer tying your worth to their inbox. You're affirming that your integrity matters more than their response time. Another powerful tool is the pre-date preparation Stoics called premeditatio malorum, anticipating challenges to disarm them. Before meeting someone new, take 2 minutes to visualize. They might not laugh at my jokes. The conversation could stall. They may not feel a connection. Then remind yourself, and that's okay. This isn't pessimism, it's immunization against disappointment. By mentally rehearsing scenarios that trigger overthinking, you strip them of their power. When they happen in real life, they feel expected rather than catastrophic. You'll find yourself shrugging off awkward moments instead of dissecting them for days. Try combining these practices with a nightly Stoic review. Ask yourself 3 questions. Where did I invest energy wisely today? Where did I waste it on things outside my control? What's one small step I can take tomorrow to align better with my values? This ritual builds what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from destructive emotions. You'll start noticing fewer sleepless nights replaying conversations and more mornings approaching dating with quiet confidence. The magic of these exercises lies in their simplicity. They don't require hours of meditation or complex theories, just pen, paper, and honest reflection. But their impact is profound. Over time, you'll internalize a truth that changes everything. You are not responsible for how others feel about you, only for how you choose to engage with them. That shift doesn't just reduce overthinking, it transforms dating from a performance into a practice of self-discovery. And when you're no longer haunted by what-ifs, you create space for something far better, authentic connection, one controlled action at a time. Ever noticed how the fear of rejection often feels worse than rejection itself? That's where Stoicism's second secret comes in, a counterintuitive practice called negative visualization. The Roman philosopher Seneca called it premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, but don't let the dramatic name fool you. This isn't about pessimism, it's about inoculation. By mentally rehearsing the very scenarios that trigger your dating anxiety, being ghosted, awkward silences, mismatched expectations, you drain them of their emotional charge. Think of it like exposure therapy for your love life. The more you confront these fears in your mind, the less they control you in reality. Here's how it works in practice. Before a first date, take 60 seconds to close your eyes and vividly imagine things going wrong. Picture your date checking their phone mid-conversation or giving vague responses to your questions. Feel the discomfort, then remind yourself, if this happens, I'll survive. This exercise does something remarkable. It reveals that the worst-case scenario isn't a catastrophe, it's just an inconvenience. The Stoics knew that uncertainty fuels anxiety, but when you've already walked through the fire in your imagination, real-life setbacks lose their sting. You stop seeing rejection as a verdict on your worth and start viewing it as a natural part of the process, like rain on a hike. Annoying, sure, world-ending. Hardly. Let's break down why this works so well for dating. When you're terrified of rejection, your brain treats every interaction like a high-stakes performance. Negative visualization flips the script. Instead of dreading awkward moments, you almost welcome them as proof that you're pushing your comfort zone. Take online dating. Most people obsess over crafting the perfect message, terrified of no reply. But what if you sent that message already accepting the possibility of silence? Suddenly, you're free to be authentic because the outcome no longer holds you hostage. This is how Stoics build resilience, not by avoiding pain, but by familiarizing themselves with it until it feels like an old acquaintance rather than a monster under the bed. The real power of this practice shines in hindsight. Recall a time you overanalyzed a date for days, certain you'd blown it. Now ask yourself, did that mental spiral change the outcome? Did it bring you closer to connection or contentment? Probably not. Negative visualization replaces that futile rumination with something far more useful: preparation. It's the difference between white-knuckling through turbulence on a plane and knowing the safety protocols so well that you barely flinch. Both passengers arrive at the same destination, but one spends the journey in peace. Try pairing this with a Stoic mantra. This too is part of the experience. When someone cancels last minute or the conversation falls flat, those words recalibrate your perspective. Dating isn't about curating a flawless highlight reel. It's about navigating real human interactions with all their messiness. The more you normalize discomfort, the more you'll notice something unexpected. The worst-case scenarios rarely unfold as catastrophically as your anxiety predicts. And when they do, you'll handle them with a shrug rather than a crisis. That's the gift of negative visualization. It doesn't just reduce overthinking, it rewires your relationship with uncertainty itself. For those who think this sounds like inviting negativity, here's the twist. By making peace with potential disappointments, you create space for genuine enjoyment. Imagine going on a date with zero expectations, not because you're cynical, but because you've already made peace with any outcome. That's when magic happens. You laugh easier, listen better, and connect more authentically. Because when you're not busy scripting perfect responses in your head, you're finally free to just be there. That's the irony Seneca understood. By preparing for the worst, you unlock your capacity to experience the best. Consider Alex, who matched with someone who seemed perfect, shared interests, great banter, even tentative plans for a weekend hike. After 2 weeks of consistent texting, the replies suddenly stopped. No warning, no explanation. The old Alex would have spiraled, checking their profile obsessively, crafting and deleting follow-up messages, even blaming themselves for being too eager. But this time, they'd practiced negative visualization. Weeks earlier, after reading Seneca, Alex had mentally rehearsed this exact scenario. They'd pictured the sinking feeling of an unanswered message, the temptation to overanalyze every prior interaction, and then they'd visualized moving forward with dignity. So when the silence stretched to 3 days, something remarkable happened. Instead of panic, Alex felt curious. Interesting, they thought. This is that moment I imagined. The emotional distance they'd created through mental preparation allowed them to see the situation with startling clarity. Maybe the other person got busy. Maybe they met someone else. Maybe it had nothing to do with Alex at all. The key insight: it didn't matter. Just as they'd practiced, Alex sent one polite follow-up. Hey, no pressure, just checking in. Then closed the app and spent the evening with friends. No refreshing the screen every 5 minutes. No desperate attempts to decode hidden meanings. Here's where Stoicism transforms rejection from a wound into wisdom. Alex realized that being ghosted wasn't the problem. Their past resistance to accepting it was. By mentally preparing for disappointment, they'd accidentally stumbled upon an empowering truth. Being ignored says far more about the ghoster's communication habits than the ghosted's worthiness. This mirrors Epictetus' teaching. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. The same event, a vanished conversation, that once triggered weeks of self-doubt now became a litmus test for emotional maturity. The real test came a week later when Alex's ex unexpectedly called. Old patterns would have had them leaping to answer, hoping for reconciliation, but negative visualization had changed the game. They'd already imagined this scenario too, the bittersweet nostalgia, the risk of reopening old wounds, and recognized it as another uncontrollable. They let the call go to voicemail, not out of bitterness, but from a place of clear-eyed self-respect. That's the hidden superpower of this practice. It doesn't just help you endure discomfort, it helps you make better decisions in the heat of it. Notice what didn't happen in Alex's story. They didn't become emotionally detached or stop caring about connections. Quite the opposite. By making peace with imperfection, they created space for healthier relationships to grow. Negative visualization isn't about expecting the worst. It's about removing the fear of the worst so you can engage authentically. Fast forward 3 months, Alex met someone new. This time, when inevitable hiccups arose: a cancelled date, a misunderstood joke, they responded with playful resilience rather than panic. Because they'd already walked through those fires in their mind, real-life sparks couldn't burn them. This is how Stoics turn philosophy into lived experience. It's not about suppressing natural emotions when plans fall through or connections fade. It's about recognizing that your peace isn't held hostage by external events, but by the meaning you assign them. Every dating disappointment is really just a neutral event waiting for your interpretation. Will you see silence as proof you're unlovable, or as a redirection toward better alignment? The choice transforms everything. Alex's story shows the quiet revolution that happens when you stop fearing outcomes and start engaging with them, not as threats but as teachers. Imagine meeting someone incredible, only for things to fizzle out after a few promising dates. Your instinct might be to dissect every detail or convince yourself you messed up. But what if, instead of resisting that disappointment, you embraced it completely? That's the heart of the Stoics' third secret, Amor Fati, Latin for love of fate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In dating terms, every rejection, ghosting, or mismatch isn't a roadblock. It's the path itself, steering you toward better alignment. Let's unpack this radical mindset shift. Amor Fati isn't about pretending rejection feels good. It's about recognizing that discomfort often precedes growth. Think of dating like sculpting marble. Every chisel strike seems destructive in the moment, but each one reveals the shape hidden beneath. When someone isn't interested, they're doing you a favor, freeing you to meet people truly meant for you. The Stoics would argue this isn't just optimism, it's objective reality. Every no eliminates a mismatch, making space for a yes that fits. The key is trusting the process enough to appreciate the nos as much as the yeses. Take Jamie's story. After 6 months of dating, their partner unexpectedly ended things, citing mismatched life goals. The initial pain was real, but Jamie chose Amor Fati. Instead of begging for another chance, they reflected, if this relationship continued, I might have compromised my own dreams. That shift from "why is this happening to me?" to "why is this happening for me?" changed everything. 3 months later, Jamie met someone whose ambitions complemented theirs perfectly. The breakup wasn't a failure, it was course correction in disguise. This philosophy shines brightest when applied to online dating's numbers game. Most people dread swiping through dozens of profiles with little success. But Amor Fati reframes those unsuccessful connections as necessary filters. Picture a chef tasting every ingredient before cooking. Not every sample makes the final dish, but each one informs the recipe. Similarly, every awkward date or dead-end conversation teaches you something new about what you truly want. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny." In modern terms, trust that the right connections will stick and the wrong ones will dissolve, not by accident but by design. How do you practice this when rejection stings? Start with gratitude. After a dating disappointment, list 3 ways it served you. Maybe a ghosting revealed your tendency to chase unavailable people. Perhaps a mismatched date clarified deal breakers you'd ignored. Even small realizations accumulate into wisdom. Then adopt a mantra. This didn't work because something better will. Not as wishful thinking, but as mathematical certainty. Every closed door improves the odds of finding the right one. The deepest lesson of Amor Fati. Detaching self-worth from outcomes. When you love your dating fate, the hits and misses, you stop seeing yourself as the product being evaluated and start seeing yourself as the curator. No single interaction defines you. The journey itself becomes the point. That's when dating transforms from a high-stakes audition into an adventure of discovery, where every moment, even the painful ones, adds another brushstroke to the masterpiece of your life. Gratitude journaling might sound like fluffy self-help advice until you try it through a Stoic lens. Here's how to transform dating frustrations into fuel for growth with prompts designed to rewire your perspective. First, set aside 5 minutes after any disappointing interaction. Write the heading 3 hidden gifts and force yourself to list specific benefits from the experience. Maybe that awkward silence taught you to embrace pauses instead of filling them with nervous chatter. Perhaps being ghosted revealed your resilience when you didn't crumble. The key is specificity, not generic. Everything happens for a reason, platitudes, but concrete takeaways you can carry forward. Next, try the reverse timeline exercise. Picture yourself 5 years from now looking back on this moment. What wisdom might that future version thank you for learning today? When Sarah used this prompt after a situationship ended abruptly, she wrote, "Thank you for not begging him to stay. That's when I stopped conflating attachment with love." This temporal distancing strips away raw emotion, revealing the bigger picture. Epictetus practiced this when he said, "We're all just actors in a play," the Stoic version of "one day this'll make a good story." For deeper patterns, use the mirror of behaviors prompt. Divide your page into 2 columns. On the left, describe what frustrated you about the other person's actions. On the right, ask, when have I done something similar? A client named Mark once raged about a date who monopolized the conversation until he realized he'd interrupted her 3 times. This isn't about self-blame, it's about spotting unconscious habits. The Stoics called this prosouch vigilant self-awareness. When resentment lingers, attempt the thank you letter you'll never send. Address it to the person who disappointed you, detailing exactly how they helped you grow. One man wrote to his ex, "Thank you for canceling our anniversary plans. It showed me I was settling for breadcrumbs." These letters stay private, turning bitterness into closure. Imagine Seneca's version after his infamous exile. "Dear Emperor Claudius, your cruelty taught me more about inner freedom than comfort ever could." Wrap each session with a stone and feather reflection. Draw a stone to represent burdens you're releasing, like overanalyzing their mixed signals, and a feather for lessons you're keeping, like noticing your worth isn't tied to their interest. This visual metaphor makes emotional weight tangible. One woman kept these drawings in her journal, watching her stones grow smaller over time as her feathers multiplied, a living record of progress. The magic happens when these prompts become ritual. What initially feels forced soon reveals profound truths, that every interaction, especially the painful ones, carries hidden curriculum. You'll start viewing dates not as successes or failures, but as chapters in your ongoing education. That's the ultimate Stoic shift, when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this preparing me for?" Suddenly, the universe isn't withholding love, it's sculpting you into someone capable of recognizing and keeping it. There's a powerful Stoic exercise that can instantly shrink dating anxiety down to size. It's called the view from above. Picture this: you're agonizing over a text left on read, heart pounding as you mentally replay every moment of your last date. Now imagine zooming out, way out, like a camera pulling back from Earth until your entire city is just a speck, then your country, then the planet itself, a pale blue dot in the vast cosmos. Those frantic thoughts that felt all-consuming suddenly seem small. That's the essence of this practice, which Marcus Aurelius used to remind himself how tiny a part of the boundless time is allotted to each of us. Dating stress thrives in tunnel vision. When you're hyper-focused on whether they'll call or why the conversation stalled, you're stuck in what psychologists call cognitive narrowing. Your brain magnifies the significance of every detail. The view from above shatters that illusion. It's not about dismissing your feelings, but contextualizing them. That awkward silence during coffee, in the grand scheme of your life across decades of relationships, career milestones, personal growth, it's barely a blip. The Stoics weren't suggesting we ignore present emotions. They were teaching us to hold them lightly, like sand rather than stone. Let's make this tangible. Next time you catch yourself ruminating over a dating mishap, try this 3-step reset. First, close your eyes and visualize your current worry as a single frame in a film reel spanning your entire life. Second, pull the camera higher, see your street from space, then Earth from the galaxy. Finally, ask, will this matter in 5 years, 5 months? The answer isn't always no. Some moments do change trajectories, but most dating hiccups won't make the highlight reel. This exercise isn't escapism, it's precision recalibration. You're not minimizing the experience, you're maximizing perspective. Consider how this applies to modern dating's unique pressures. Swiping through profiles can feel like browsing a catalog of infinite options and infinite rejections. But the view from above reveals the absurdity of assigning cosmic importance to each left or right swipe. Imagine future you looking back on this phase. They'll likely remember the relationships that did blossom, not the hundreds of profiles that didn't. This mirrors Seneca's advice: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The dread of being unmatched or ghosted often outweighs the actual event because we've failed to see it in proportion. The real magic happens when you apply this perspective proactively. Before a first date, take 30 seconds to visualize yourself years from now recalling this moment. Whether it leads to love or becomes a funny story, it's just one thread in your tapestry. This mental shift does something remarkable. It loosens the grip of perfectionism. When you stop treating every interaction as life or death, you become more playful, more yourself. That's why the view from above isn't just about coping with disappointment. It's about preventing overthinking before it starts. You'll start seeing dates not as tests to pass, but as chapters in a memoir you're casually composing. History offers a striking example. Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote his famous Meditations not as a grand philosophical treatise, but as personal reminders, many composed on military campaigns far from home. Amidst wars and political intrigue, he returned again and again to this zoomed-out perspective. Think of the substance of the whole, how fleeting it is. If a man steering an empire could find solace in this practice, surely we can apply it to first-date jitters. Your romantic journey isn't unfolding in isolation. It's part of a vast, interconnected human experience where missed connections and serendipitous meetings balance out. For those who think this sounds too abstract, try a modern adaptation, the social media time machine. Scroll back through your feeds to posts or messages that once felt urgent, an argument you obsessed over, a like that never came. Notice how trivial most appear now. That's the view from above in digital form. Dating worries follow the same pattern, intense in the moment, faded with time. The Stoics would argue this isn't just hindsight, it's foresight. You already know today's anxieties will shrink with time. Why wait to grant yourself that clarity? This practice's greatest gift might be how it reshapes rejection. When someone isn't interested, the view from above reminds you, this isn't a verdict on your worth, but a single data point in your search. Imagine holding a map of your dating life. Each no isn't a roadblock, it's a turn toward better terrain. Seen from this altitude, even heartbreak transforms. Breakups that once felt like earthquakes become mere tremors on a vast geological timeline. Painful, yes, but not the end of your story. That's the ultimate Stoic paradox. By acknowledging how small our struggles are in the universe's scope, we make room for our deepest growth. So the next time dating stress threatens to swallow you whole, remember, you're not stuck in the moment unless you choose to be. Lift your gaze, breathe. And let the view from above remind you, this isn't your whole story, it's just one sentence in a life rich with possibility. Let's take this cosmic perspective off the page and into practice with a guided visualization you can use anytime dating stress starts to feel overwhelming. Find a comfortable seat, close your eyes if you're able, and begin by simply noticing your breath in and out like waves on a shore. Now picture the scene that's troubling you. Maybe it's that unanswered message, the awkward goodbye hug, or the joke that didn't land. See it play out like a scene in a movie, frozen in a single frame. Now imagine the camera pulling back slowly. You see the room you were in from above. The chairs, the coffee cups, the exit sign above the door. Keep zooming out. The building shrinks to the size of a shoebox, then your neighborhood becomes a patchwork of rooftops. Higher still, your entire city is now just a grid of lights, cars moving like ants along highways. Notice how small that moment appears from here. The tension in your chest, the replaying thoughts, can you still feel them with this much distance? Continue rising until continents take shape beneath you, oceans gleaming under sunlight. That date, that person, that silence, where does it sit now in this vast landscape? Higher again, until Earth is a blue marble hanging in space, just as astronauts see it. From here, all human drama, the heartbreaks, the misunderstandings, the longing folds into silence. The Stoics called this the sublime, a reminder that our struggles are both intensely personal and cosmically tiny. Now fast forward mentally, picture yourself 1 year from today, looking back on this moment. What will you remember, the taste of the coffee or the way you grew from the experience? The awkward pause or the resilience you discovered afterward. This is the gift of the view from above. It doesn't erase the moment's significance, but it frames it within your larger story. When you're ready, gently return your awareness to the room. Wiggle your fingers, feel your feet on the floor. Carry this perspective with you like a secret compass. North always points to what truly matters. The next time overthinking creeps in, ask, how will this feel from 10,000 feet from next year? The space between those answers is where your peace lies. For those who prefer a modern twist, try this digital variation. Open Google Earth and type in your location. Watch as the screen zooms out from your street to your city to the curve of the planet. That visceral shrinking effect mirrors the mental shift, your worries becoming pixels in a much bigger picture. One executive I coached kept this tab open during stressful negotiations. For dating, it works just as well. Seeing your neighborhood melt into geography recalibrates urgency into patience. The real power of this practice isn't just in the moment, it's in the ripple effect. When you habitually zoom out, you start making different choices. You send that follow-up text without agonizing over punctuation. You laugh off mismatched chemistry instead of taking it personally. Why? Because you've tasted the cosmic punchline. In the grand theater of existence, we're all just figuring it out as we go. That liberating truth doesn't diminish your dating journey. It lets you walk through it with lighter steps and a wiser heart. There's a Stoic practice so counterintuitive it might sound morbid at first, until you realize it's the ultimate antidote to people-pleasing in dating. It's called Memento Mori, the art of remembering your own mortality. The ancient Stoics kept skulls on their desks and whispered, "You could die tomorrow," not to depress themselves but to strip away life's illusions. When applied to romance, this stark awareness becomes a superpower. Imagine sitting across from someone you're drawn to, and instead of worrying whether they like you, you ask, "If this were my last conversation, would I be proud of how I showed up?" That shift from seeking approval to honoring your truth changes everything. Epictetus, the former slave turned philosopher, put it bluntly, "You're a soul carrying around a corpse." His point wasn't to shock but to wake us up. In dating terms, the hours spent crafting perfect texts to impress someone, the dates where you nod along to opinions you don't share, the relationships you prolong out of fear of being alone, none of that survives the Memento Mori test. When you truly internalize that your time is limited, inauthenticity starts to feel like theft-stealing moments from your future self who deserved better. Consider how differently we approach dating when death isn't some distant abstraction but a gentle whisper in our ear. A client named Priya realized she'd been hiding her passion for competitive rock climbing because past partners found it too intense. After embracing Memento Mori, she put a photo of her gear in her dating profile. "I'd rather repel the wrong people than attract them by pretending," she said. The result, fewer matches but richer connections. One date even joined her at the climbing gym, something that never happened when she played small. This is the paradox. Acknowledging death doesn't make us reckless with love. It makes us more intentional about how we give and receive it. The practice shines brightest in moments of rejection. Most of us panic at the thought of being disliked, so we contort ourselves to fit someone else's mold. But Memento Mori reframes that fear. Picture two scenarios. In one, you suppress your quirks to keep someone interested, only for the relationship to fizzle months later. In the other, you show up fully yourself, weird hobbies, strong opinions, all of it, and they walk away immediately, which ending leaves you with self-respect. The Stoics would argue the second, because the only approval that outlives you is the approval of your own conscience. Try this exercise before your next date. Write your own eulogy for how you want to be remembered in relationships. Not as someone who was universally liked, but as someone who loved courageously, set boundaries gracefully, and never apologized for taking up space. Then step into that version of yourself. You'll notice something unexpected. The less you need a date to validate you, the more magnetic you become, because nothing attracts like authenticity. Even if it means fewer second dates, each one will be with someone who actually wants you, not a performance. At its core, Memento Mori isn't about death at all, it's about life. It's the understanding that every swipe, every conversation, every risk of vulnerability is a finite gift. When you stop treating dates like auditions and start treating them like chapters in a story too short to waste, you stop overthinking and start living. And that's when the right people recognize you, not because you dimmed your light to match theirs, but because you burned bright enough to be seen from miles away. History offers us striking examples of Stoics who turned mortality into their greatest motivator, not with reckless abandon, but with crystal clear purpose. Take Cotto the Younger, the Roman senator who chose death over compromising his principles when Julius Caesar seized power. But here's what most miss. Years before that dramatic end, Cotto lived each day as if it were his last. He courted his wife Marcia openly when others played games, spoke his mind in the Senate without fear of backlash, and made decisions both personal and political from a place of unshakable conviction. His secret: he'd already made peace with life's brevity, so hesitation simply didn't compute. This same urgency radiates from the letters of Seneca, written to his friend Lucilius as both men faced aging and illness. "We die every day," Seneca reminded him, urging him to stop postponing joy and connection. Picture this: a 60-something statesman, knowing his time was limited, penning heartfelt advice about expressing affection without reserve. One letter reads like modern dating counsel. "Why save your best words for tombstones? Tell her now, today, how brightly she burns in your life." That's mortality motivation in action, transforming someday into before the sun sets. Then there's the lesser-known story of Portia Catanis, Cotto's daughter and Brutus' wife. When her husband hesitated to join the conspiracy against Caesar, she didn't overanalyze. She stabbed her own thigh as proof of her commitment, saying, "Pain is nothing if it serves purpose." While we're not advocating self-harm, her clarity cuts through modern dating's wishy-washiness. She understood what most of us forget: life's too short for half-hearted gestures. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, embodied this principle accidentally. A shipwreck left him penniless in Athens, where he wandered into a bookstore and discovered philosophy. That disaster became his watershed moment. He stopped waiting for perfect conditions to transform his life. Imagine applying that to dating. Instead of waiting until you're thin enough or successful enough to shoot your shot, you act now, imperfectly but authentically. The through line in these stories: each person faced mortality's whisper and responded not with fear but fierce presence. They didn't use someday as a crutch. They loved, spoke, and acted with the weight of finitude on their shoulders. That's the antidote to modern dating's paralysis by analysis. When you internalize that time is your only non-renewable resource, suddenly, "What if they reject me?" becomes "What if I never try?" Here's how to borrow their courage before your next date, or even before sending that risky text. Ask Seneca's question: "Is this how I'd act if this were my last chance?" Not to pressure yourself, but to prune away hesitation. That compliment you're withholding, voice it. The boundary you've been softening, state it plainly. The attraction you've been downplaying, let it show. Mortality motivation isn't about morbid fixation, it's about aliveness. When you stop treating connections like endless possibilities and start treating them like fleeting opportunities, every interaction becomes richer, bolder, and strangely enough lighter. Consider the Japanese concept of mono, know aware, the bittersweet awareness of life's impermanence that makes cherry blossoms all the more beautiful. That's the gift these Stoics mastered. Seeing endings everywhere made their beginnings fearless. Your dating life blossoms when you embrace that same truth, not with dread, but with the quiet thrill of knowing. Today's awkward attempt beats tomorrow's regret. Their stories remind us that overthinking isn't just inefficient, it's a theft of your own vitality. So let their urgency infect you. The right person won't need a perfect performance. They'll recognize you by the way you refuse to waste a single precious moment. The modern dating world often feels like a high-stakes game where every interaction gets scored. Did they reply fast enough? Was the chemistry electric? Did it lead to a second date? We've been conditioned to view connections as transactions, measuring our worth by the outcomes they produce. But Stoicism flips this script entirely with its doctrine of apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from destructive emotional turbulence by releasing attachment to results. Imagine walking into a date with zero expectation of how it should go, not out of pessimism, but from a place of profound acceptance. That's the essence of detachment, caring deeply without clinging. Consider two approaches to texting someone you're interested in. The anxious dater sends a message, then obsesses over response times, rereads their words for hidden flaws, and equates silence with rejection. The Stoic, meanwhile, crafts a thoughtful note, maybe even enjoys the creative process of writing it, then releases it like a paper boat into a stream. They understand that once sent, the message belongs to the universe. Their peace isn't tied to the reply, it's anchored in having expressed themselves authentically. This distinction transforms dating from a performance to a practice, one where you're no longer auditioning for strangers, but refining your ability to engage with honesty and presence. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, born into slavery, had every reason to fixate on outcomes beyond his control. Yet he taught, what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things. Apply this to dating. It's not rejection that hurts, but your belief that rejection means you're unlovable. It's not ghosting that stings, but your story that being ignored diminishes your worth. Ancient Stoics used the word prohesis, the sphere of choice, to mark the boundary between what's yours to govern your effort, your integrity, and what isn't, their reaction, their interest. Every moment spent agonizing over someone else's choices is a theft from your own agency. Let's ground this in a real scenario. Emma goes on a fantastic first date, laughing, shared values, even tentative plans to meet again. Then radio silence, her modern dating trained brain races. Was I too eager, not attractive enough? But her Stoic toolkit offers another path. She pauses to separate facts. She showed up genuinely, enjoyed the conversation from fictions. Their silence reflects her value. She acknowledges disappointment without letting it metastasize into self-doubt. By detaching from the why, she reclaims her equilibrium. The outcome hasn't changed, but her suffering has, because she stopped conflating results with self-worth. This philosophy doesn't require suppressing natural emotions. Even Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who penned Stoic meditations, wrote candidly about grief. Detachment isn't numbness, it's the space between feeling and reacting. Picture a surfer riding a wave. They don't control the ocean's movement, but they choose how to respond to each ripple. Similarly, you might feel excitement when meeting someone new or sadness when things fade. Stoicism simply reminds you those emotions don't have to steer the ship. The most liberating application, redefining success in dating. Modern metrics matches second dates, declarations of commitment are flimsy markers. The Stoic measures differently. Did I act with integrity? Did I stay true to my values? Did I learn something? Answer yes, and no external outcome can diminish the experience. A client named Raj embodied this after months of disappointing dates. Instead of tallying rejections, he began journaling one thing he'd done well after each encounter, held a boundary, asked a thoughtful question, or simply showed up despite nerves. Over time, his focus shifted from, are they choosing me, to, am I choosing myself? That's detachment's alchemy. When you stop needing a specific result, every interaction becomes fertile ground for growth. Critics might argue this mindset kills romance's spontaneity, but consider the opposite. Nothing's more romantic than engaging with someone free from ulterior motives or hidden agendas. Detachment strips away the desperation that taints early connections, leaving space for authenticity to flourish. It's the difference between a musician playing for applause and one who plays for the sheer joy of music. The latter's artistry inevitably shines brighter. Practical steps for cultivating this: start small. Next time you're tempted to analyze a date's performance, redirect that energy inward. What did I admire about how I showed up? When drafting a message, pour care into writing it. Then, before hitting send, whisper Seneca's mantra, "This now belongs to fortune." And when outcomes disappoint, borrow Epictetus' question, "Where did I hand over my peace to something beyond my command?" Detachment isn't about caring less. It's about investing your care wisely in the process, not the prize. Because when you stop treating connections like transactions, you start recognizing them for what they truly are: waypoints on the longer journey of knowing yourself. We've all been there, on a date that feels like it's going well, laughing at their jokes, sharing stories, only to come home and immediately obsess over whether they'll ask you out again. It's as if our brains have a built-in negativity bias, skipping past the pleasant moments to fixate on uncertainty. But what if you could rewire that instinct? Enter the Stoic Process Journal, a simple but transformative practice where you document the experience of dating rather than its potential outcomes. Instead of scribbling, "Will they text me?" in your notes app, you'd record, "Made them laugh 3 times," or "Learned something new about pottery." This shift, from future tripping to present moment savoring, is how Stoics cultivate joy regardless of external results. Think of it like wine tasting. Novices rush to judge whether a wine is good or bad, while connoisseurs savor each note: the berry undertones, the oak finish. Dating becomes richer when you adopt that same mindset. A client named Derek started noting one enjoyable detail after each date: the way his match's eyes lit up discussing astrophysics, the warmth of their hand brushing his during a walk. Months later, flipping through these entries, he realized something profound. Even dates that didn't lead to relationships had gifted him moments of genuine connection. The journal wasn't just a record, it was proof that joy exists independently of outcomes. The technical brilliance of this method lies in its neuroscience. When you document positive micro-moments, you strengthen neural pathways for gratitude and presence. Over time, your brain stops treating dates like job interviews, pass/fail, and starts experiencing them as collections of human encounters, each with its own texture. Marcus Aurelius modeled this in his meditations, often recounting small pleasures like the taste of fresh bread or a teacher's patience. He wasn't just journaling, he was training his mind to spot beauty amid chaos. Your dating life deserves the same attention. Here's how to start. After your next date, before checking your phone for their message, open a notebook or app and list 3 specific things you enjoyed. Not vague, "It was nice," but tangible details. The way they tilted their head listening, that story about their grandmother's recipes, how comfortable the silence felt. This practice serves 2 purposes. First, it anchors you in what actually happened rather than stories about what might. Second, it builds an invaluable archive. 6 months from now, when disappointment strikes, you'll have evidence that dating isn't just a string of rejections, it's a mosaic of meaningful interactions. For those who think this sounds Pollyanna-ish, consider the alternative. Without conscious effort, our minds default to the negative. It's evolutionary. Early humans who remembered where the berries grew were less likely to starve than those who reminisced about sunsets. But in modern dating, that same wiring backfires. We remember the ghostings, not the inside jokes. The process journal is your counterbalance. Like a Stoic version of a gratitude practice, it doesn't deny pain but insists that joy gets equal shelf space. Take inspiration from Epictetus, who advised, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it actually does." Applied to dating, this means releasing your death grip on how things should unfold and becoming a curious observer of how they do. The journal trains that muscle. When you write, "They didn't kiss me goodbye, but their parting smile was sincere," you're not settling, you're seeing fully. and paradoxically, that clarity makes you more attractive. Nothing disarms potential partners like someone genuinely engaged in the moment rather than mentally scripting the next 5 dates. One woman's journal entry captures this perfectly. "Tonight, we split a dessert and he didn't pretend to like the mint garnish." Small honesty feels like hope. Notice what's absent, any mention of whether he'll call. That's the magic. By focusing on process over outcome, you reclaim dating as a series of present tense experiences rather than a high-stakes waiting game. The right connections will deepen naturally when you're no longer squeezing them for guarantees, and the wrong ones, they'll fade without dragging your self-worth with them. The Stoics knew a secret modern daters forget. Life's value isn't measured in endpoints but in the quality of our attention along the way. Your process journal isn't just a tool, it's a rebellion against a culture obsessed with romantic destinations. Every entry whispers the truth our overthinking minds need to hear. You are already here, you are already enough, and whether this particular story continues or not, the moments you've collected, like shells from a shoreline, are yours to keep forever. Cato the Younger, Rome's legendary Stoic statesman, was known for speeches so concise they left crowds stunned. When rivals rambled for hours, he'd dismantle their arguments in 3 sentences. In dating, this principle, speaking with purpose, is your secret weapon against overthinking. Every "should I send this" or "did that sound too eager" stems from a fear of misinterpretation. But here's the paradox: the fewer words you use, the clearer your intent becomes. Think of your messages like arrows, straight, sharp, and impossible to misread. Modern dating drowns in ambiguity. We pad texts with emojis just in case, bury intentions in vague invitations, hanging out sometime maybe, and treat punctuation like emotional armor. Contrast this with Cato's approach. Facing exile, he didn't plead, he simply stated, "If Rome needs my absence, I leave." That unshakable clarity is what made him legendary. Apply this to your dating life. "I enjoyed our conversation and would love to continue it over dinner Thursday" isn't just confident, it gives the recipient a binary choice. No decoding required. The Stoics called this laconic brevity, the art of stripping away everything but the essential. When you master it, you eliminate the post-send anxiety plaguing modern daters. Consider 2 messages. "Hey, I was thinking maybe we could do something next week if you're free. No pressure though," versus "dinner at Carmine's Wednesday at 7. The first invites overanalysis. Why no pressure? Do they actually want to go? The second, crystal clear. This isn't about being blunt, it's about respecting both parties' time and attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let every word count." In an era of endless notifications, purposeful communication stands out like a beacon. The magic lies in preparation. Before sending any meaningful message, practice the Stoic 3-filter test. 1. Necessity. Is this word/emoji/sentence essential to my intent? 2. Truth. Does it align with what I genuinely want? 3. Kindness. Is it phrased respectfully? A client named Nina used this before texting someone who'd gone quiet. Instead of a passive-aggressive, "Guess you're busy," which failed all 3 filters, she sent, "I'd still love to see you if you're interested." No games, no subtext, just a clear invitation that preserved her dignity regardless of response. This philosophy extends beyond texting. On dates, notice how often we dilute strong statements with qualifiers. "This might sound weird, but," or "I don't know, maybe." Each hedge creates openings for doubt. Compare that to someone who says, "I believe in this deeply," or "My experience has taught me." Their conviction isn't arrogant, it's magnetic. The Stoics understood that hesitation erodes credibility while brevity builds it. For those fearing this sounds too rigid, remember, clarity and warmth aren't mutually exclusive. "I'd love to kiss you right now" is both direct and vulnerable. "That story made me laugh hard" carries more weight than a string of laughing emojis. the common thread. Each statement owns its intention fully. Texting like a Stoic doesn't mean becoming a robot. It means deleting the fluff that clouds your authenticity. Try this experiment for 1 week. Give every message the Cotto edit. Have the word count. Replace, "I kinda think we maybe could hang out," with "coffee tomorrow." Watch 2 things happen. First, your mental load lightens, no more agonizing over tone. Second, responses become more decisive. You're not just communicating clearly, you're training others to match your level of intentionality. When you stop watering down your words, you attract people who appreciate the strength it takes to speak plainly. In a world where ambiguity breeds anxiety, Stoic brevity is your anchor. Every unnecessary word you omit is one less thing to overanalyze later. And when you consistently say what you mean without apology or excess, you project a confidence that transcends dating profiles and small talk. That's the ultimate power of speaking with purpose. It doesn't just prevent overthinking, it makes you someone worth thinking about. Ever notice how the simple act of sending a text can turn into an all-consuming mental loop? You type, delete, retype, add an emoji, remove it, then finally hit send only to immediately regret every word. The Stoics would recognize this as a classic case of misplaced focus. When we obsess over crafting messages designed to manipulate a response, we've strayed from virtue into anxiety. The solution isn't better gamesmanship, it's radical clarity. Below, you'll find message templates stripped of neediness, each designed to express intent without apology and leave no room for overinterpretation. For initiating plans after a good date, I enjoyed our conversation about specific topic. Let's continue it over dinner at place on day. Does 7 p.m. work? This bypasses the vague hang out sometime trap. By naming a specific shared moment, you ground the invitation in a real connection rather than abstraction. The time and place remove logistical back and forth, a subtle gift to both parties. Notice what's absent, hedging phrases like "if you're free" or "no pressure," which inadvertently signal you're already braced for rejection. When they go silent, "I'd like to see you again if you're still interested. If not, I appreciate the time we shared either way." This is the antidote to passive-aggressive "guess you're busy" messages. It acknowledges reality without groveling. The second sentence isn't defeatist, it's a dignified release of outcomes, embodying Epictetus' teaching. If you want something, also want the price it costs. Here, the price is potential rejection, paid upfront with grace, for expressing interest without suffocating intensity. I find myself thinking about specific thing they said/did. You have a refreshing perspective. This replaces generic compliments with targeted appreciation. Refreshing implies they stand out without overpromising. Contrast this with "you're amazing," an inflated claim that pressures both giver and receiver. The Stoics prized specificity. Marcus Aurelius wrote detailed tributes to mentors, citing exact qualities he admired. This mirroring technique shows you're truly listening, not just flattering when you need space. "I'm regrouping this week, so my replies might be slow." Didn't want you to wonder. Most people ghost or invent elaborate excuses. This states a boundary plainly, respecting the other person's time while preserving autonomy. Seneca wrote, "We must give up many things to which we are addicted, thinking they belong to us." Here, you relinquish the addiction to constant availability, a modern malaise. The common thread: each message follows the Stoic 3Cs: clear, concise, controlled. Controlled doesn't mean manipulative. It signifies keeping command of your own emotional state regardless of response. These templates aren't scripts, they're mindset calibrations. When your words align with the truth of your intentions, post-send anxiety dissolves. You'll stop refreshing your inbox because you've already succeeded by expressing yourself with integrity. The reply, or lack thereof, becomes information rather than validation. For those thinking, "But what if they still don't respond?" remember Seneca's counsel. A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver or doer. The right people will meet your clarity with their own. The wrong ones, their silence isn't a rejection, it's redirection. Most of us spend our dating lives running from discomfort, crafting perfect profiles to avoid rejection, rehearsing lines to dodge awkwardness, swiping endlessly to sidestep real vulnerability. But the Stoics flipped the script entirely with a radical practice called voluntary discomfort, the deliberate embrace of hardship to strengthen resilience. Picture ancient Stoics like Musonius Rufus choosing to wear thin clothes in winter or sleep on hard floors, not because they had to, but to prove to themselves, I can endure more than I fear. Now imagine applying that same mindset to modern dating. Instead of avoiding rejection, you lean into it, not as punishment but as training. The result: a quiet confidence that no awkward silence or unanswered text can shake. Take something as simple as approaching strangers in public, not with pickup lines but with genuine curiosity. Your goal isn't to succeed in getting a number, but to rewire your relationship with discomfort itself. A client named Daniel did this as an experiment. For 1 month, he committed to complimenting one stranger daily, not romantically, but authentically. "That's a fantastic jacket," or "Your laugh made my morning." At first, his hands shook. By week 3, he noticed something unexpected. The fear of rejection hadn't disappeared, but it had lost its fangs. Dates felt lighter because he'd proven to himself that even if someone wasn't interested, the sting was momentary. That's the alchemy of voluntary discomfort. It doesn't erase fear. It teaches you that you can coexist with it. This practice traces back to Seneca's letters, where he advised his friend Lucilius to periodically, live as the poor do, to appreciate his wealth without clinging to it. Translated to dating, it means intentionally stepping into situations where you might feel foolish or exposed. Try deleting your dating apps for a week and striking up conversations in person. Send that message without over-editing it. Go on a date without rehearsing stories in advance. Each time you willingly enter discomfort, you chip away at the illusion that rejection is catastrophic. Like lifting weights for your emotional resilience, these small acts build the muscle to handle bigger uncertainties, like expressing vulnerability or walking away from mismatched connections. The brilliance lies in reframing discomfort's purpose. Most of us see awkward moments as failures. Ugh, that joke fell flat. But Stoics see them as opportunities to practice equanimity. Think of it like a fire drill. You don't wait for an actual emergency to learn the exits. By simulating small rejections, a stranger not engaging, a date ending without sparks, you immunize yourself against the real thing. One woman practiced this by committing to one cringe-worthy action per week, asking a barista out directly, wearing an oddly colorful outfit on dates to test her fear of standing out. Over time, she reported a paradoxical shift. The more she leaned into awkwardness, the more authentic connections she attracted. People resonated with her unapologetic presence. Critics might argue this sounds like manufactured suffering, but voluntary discomfort isn't about self-flagellation, it's about liberation. When you stop treating discomfort as the enemy, you unlock a freer, more spontaneous version of yourself. Picture 2 versions of you on a date, one stiffly monitoring every word to avoid missteps, the other relaxed and engaged because you've already survived worse than an awkward pause. Which one is more magnetic? The Stoics knew this truth 2,000 years ago, that comfort is the enemy of growth, and the things we avoid most are often the very experiences that fortify us. For those ready to begin, start small. Next time you're at a coffee shop, ask the person next to you what they're reading, with no agenda beyond the question itself. Before sending a dating app message, resist the urge to edit it 10 times. Each act is a rebellion against the overthinking that plagues modern romance. Over time, you'll stop seeing rejection as proof of inadequacy and start viewing it as part of the process, like rain during a hike. Annoying, sure, capable of ruining you. Not even close. That's the quiet power of voluntary discomfort. It doesn't just make you braver in dating, it reminds you that you are always stronger than your fears suggested. Stoicism isn't meant to stay on the page, it's meant to be lived. That's why this next challenge transforms philosophy into action, one deliberate step at a time. Over the next 30 days, you'll systematically strengthen your dating resilience by leaning into discomfort rather than avoiding it. Think of this as a workout plan for your emotional endurance, where each week builds on the last, turning anxiety into confidence through practice. Week 1 starts gently. Commit to initiating one genuine conversation daily with a stranger, no agenda required. It could be as simple as complimenting a barista's tattoo or asking a coworker about their weekend plans. The goal isn't romantic success, it's rewiring your brain to see social interaction as low-stakes practice, not high-pressure performance. By day 7, you'll notice something surprising. The fear of awkwardness begins to feel like background noise rather than a siren. Week 2 shifts to digital courage. Every other day, send a message on your dating app that feels slightly outside your comfort zone, perhaps revealing an unconventional hobby or playfully calling out something specific in their profile. The key here is embracing the possibility of no reply. One participant in this challenge reported a breakthrough after sending, "Confession, I picked this cafe for our date because their lavender latte reminds me of my grandmother's garden." The match didn't respond, but she felt liberated. She'd expressed authenticity without needing validation. This mirrors Seneca's advice to practice poverty, to appreciate abundance. By practicing rejection, you detach from needing constant approval. The third week introduces what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum in action. Schedule 2 dates, one with someone you're genuinely excited about, another with someone you feel neutral toward. For the second date, go in with zero expectations, treating it purely as an exercise in presence. Notice when your mind tries to evaluate, is this going anywhere? And gently return to observing the person across from you. Many discover this neutrality paradoxically leads to deeper connection. Without performance pressure, they become more attuned listeners. One man reported his practice date turned into a 4-hour conversation about childhood dreams because he wasn't preoccupied with impressing her. The final 7 days are your masterclass in graceful detachment. Reach out to someone who previously ghosted or faded away with a concise, warm message, not to rekindle things, but to practice non-attachment to outcomes. Something like, "No hard feelings if you've moved on, but I enjoyed our conversation about specific topic and wanted to say hello." Whether they reply or not, you've proven to yourself that rejection isn't fatal. For an advanced variation, try the Cotto challenge. Spend an entire date speaking your unfiltered truth politely but without people-pleasing. Admit when you disagree, share an odd passion unapologetically, or state a boundary clearly. Like the Stoic statesman who refused to sugarcoat his principles, you'll find power in radical authenticity. By day 30, discomfort won't just feel manageable, it'll become your compass. You'll start recognizing overthinking as a signal to lean in rather than retreat. That first date nervousness, it's just energy waiting to be channeled into curiosity. Those unanswered messages, they're not verdicts on your worth, but reminders that you're actively participating in your own growth. The Stoics didn't build resilience through theory alone. They trained like athletes for life's uncertainties. This challenge is your training ground where every awkward moment, every risk of vulnerability becomes another rep strengthening your emotional core. The road to fearless dating isn't paved with perfect interactions, but with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've faced the discomfort before and you'll rise to meet it again. The ancient Stoics didn't just study philosophy, they lived by a code. At the heart of their teaching stood 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These weren't abstract ideals gathering dust in scrolls. They were daily practices that shaped every interaction, every decision, every relationship. Now imagine bringing that same clarity into your dating life. What if before swiping right or agonizing over a text, you could measure your choices against a personal set of principles? That's the power of crafting your dating virtues, a living manifesto that cuts through modern romance's noise and keeps you anchored to who you truly are. Picture two versions of yourself on a date. One constantly adjusts behavior to please, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, downplaying passions that might seem too much, molding into whatever shape seems most appealing. The other walks in with quiet assurance, not because they're flawless, but because they've defined what integrity means to them in relationships. This second version is what happens when you distill the Stoic virtues into dating-specific terms. Wisdom becomes the ability to walk away from chemistry that lacks character. Courage looks like expressing interest without guarantee of reciprocation. Justice manifests as treating others and yourself with unwavering respect regardless of attraction. Temperance, that's rejecting the modern dating treadmill of endless options in favor of depth over distraction. The magic happens when you move from theory to ink. Grab a notebook and title it My Dating Manifesto. Under each virtue, write 3 bullet points that make them actionable. For courage, I will ask for what I want clearly, even if my voice shakes. For temperance, I won't keep texting someone just because they're giving me breadcrumbs. This exercise forces you to confront uncomfortable truths, like whether you've been chasing validation disguised as connection. One workshop participant realized her type wasn't tall, dark, and handsome. It was emotionally unavailable. Her justice principle, I will no longer make excuses for people who treat me as an option. That sentence alone saved her months of future heartache. History offers striking examples of virtue in action. Consider Portia Catanis, the Stoic noblewoman who tested her resolve by stabbing her thigh before joining Brutus' conspiracy. While we're not advocating self-harm, her clarity puts modern dating's wishy-washiness to shame. Or Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire yet wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be." Be one. Your dating manifesto is that same command made personal. When you're tempted to ghost because confrontation feels awkward, your courage principle stares back. I will communicate my disinterest with kindness. When you catch yourself analyzing a lukewarm connection for potential, your wisdom guideline intervenes. I will believe people's actions over their potential. The test comes when principles clash with desire. You meet someone magnetic who reveals deal breakers. Maybe they want kids when you don't, or they dismiss waitstaff rudely. Your manifesto isn't there to judge them, but to ask, which version of myself am I choosing right now? A man named Rog faced this when his dream partner pressured him to abandon his meditation practice for more exciting dates. His temperance principle, I will protect what nourishes my soul, gave him strength to walk away. Months later, he met someone who joined him for morning sits. That's the alchemy of dating virtues. They don't just filter incompatible partners, they attract people who resonate with your deepest values. For those thinking this sounds rigid, remember, Stoicism is about flexibility within framework. Your virtues evolve as you do. Maybe justice initially meant no love bombers, but after therapy expands to I will set boundaries around discussions of past relationships. The key is revisiting your manifesto monthly, adding hard-won lessons. Think of it like updating your internal operating system for healthier connections. One woman's post-breakup addition to her courage column: I will admit when I'm wrong without dissolving into self-loathing. That single line transformed how she showed up in future conflicts. The ultimate gift of this practice, it transfers power from unpredictable outcomes to daily choices. Instead of wondering, do they like me, you ask, am I acting in alignment? When a date fades, you don't spiral, you open your manifesto and find comfort in having honored your principles. That's true resilience, because in the end, dating isn't about finding someone who makes you feel complete. It's about becoming someone who knows their own worth so deeply that the right connection feels like a bonus, not a lifeline. Your virtues are the compass that keeps you oriented toward that truth, one intentional choice at a time. Take out a blank sheet of paper and draw 2 vertical lines to create 3 columns. This will become your dating decision matrix. Label the first column core virtues, the second non-negotiables, and the third deal breakers. This isn't just another list-making exercise. It's a strategic blueprint modeled after the Stoic practice of paralysis, defining what's truly yours to govern in relationships. Start with the left column by asking yourself, what qualities would I admire in someone even if we never dated? This crucial reframe shifts you from chasing chemistry to recognizing character. In the core virtues column, think beyond surface traits like funny or ambitious. Dig into the ethical bedrock that outlasts initial attraction. Maybe it's integrity, someone who apologizes unprompted when they're wrong. Perhaps it's resilience, the ability to laugh when plans collapse. One workshop participant wrote curiosity after realizing past partners lost interest in her passions. Another chose equanimity because volatile tempers triggered his anxiety. These become your North Stars, the virtues that make someone not just captivating but trustworthy. The Stoics believed excellence of character was the only true good. Your first column honors that wisdom. Now move to non-negotiables, not preferences like height or hobbies, but behavioral green flags that signal alignment with your virtues. If honesty made your core list, your non-negotiables might include answers difficult questions directly or introduces me to friends without hesitation. Be ruthlessly specific. Kind to service staff is better than nice. Respects time boundaries beats good communicator. A woman once shared how this exercise revealed her pattern. She kept excusing lateness in charming partners until she wrote, "shows up when promised" in bold. That single phrase became her litmus test, saving months of frustration. The deal breakers column isn't for petty gripes, but for behaviors that violate your core virtues. Here's where Stoic clarity cuts through modern datings. Maybe they'll change fantasies. If your virtue is respect, a deal breaker might be mocks my beliefs. If it's accountability, blames exes for all past failures. One man realized his deal breaker wasn't busy, but consistently cancels plans last minute with no apology, a distinction that helped him stop rationalizing neglect. The key is phrasing these as observable actions, not vague potentials like "isn't ready for commitment." You're creating a filter, not a crystal ball. Now the transformative part, assign each column a weight. Core virtues get 50% of your evaluation criteria, non-negotiables 30%, deal breakers 20%. Why? Because most daters do the opposite. They prioritize sparks 10% over substance 90% and wonder why connections fizzle. When someone scores high on virtues but lacks a preferred trait, maybe they dislike travel. This system helps you see the bigger picture. Conversely, when red flags appear, the math becomes unforgiving. A deal-breaker violation automatically outweighs surface-level compatibility. Test drive your matrix with past relationships. Rate an ex or situationship using this rubric. You'll likely find painful clarity. Perhaps they scored 80% on fun but 20% on integrity. That retrospective insight trains you to spot misalignments faster. One client avoided a toxic replay when her new date joked about lying to his boss, a violation of her core virtue column. The old her would have brushed it off. The matrix made the choice obvious. Keep this document visible, taped to your mirror or saved as a phone lock screen. Update it quarterly as you grow. The Stoics didn't view virtues as static. They were muscles to strengthen. When you notice a pattern, e.g., you keep ignoring disrespect because of great chemistry, add it to your deal breakers. This living document does what no dating app algorithm can. It reminds you that your peace isn't negotiable, and overthinking often stems from lacking your own clear standards. The ultimate power of virtue mapping, it externalizes your wisdom. When uncertainty strikes, should I give them another chance? You consult your criteria, not your anxiety. Like Marcus Aurelius consulting his meditations, you're no longer at the mercy of fleeting emotions. Each column whispers Stoicism's timeless truth. The right relationships don't require you to abandon yourself at the door. Imagine standing at a rock-climbing gym for the first time. Your hands sweat at the sight of the wall, your heart races at the thought of falling. Now picture two approaches. One climber avoids the hardest routes, sticking to paths they know they can conquer. The other seeks out the most challenging overhang, not despite their fear, but because of it. Which one grows stronger faster? This is the essence of the Stoic principle Ryan Holiday popularized as the obstacle is the way, and it's your secret weapon for transforming dating's toughest hurdles into your greatest advantages. Let's shatter a common illusion that confidence in dating means the absence of fear or discomfort. The Stoics knew better. True resilience isn't built on easy victories, it's forged in the friction of obstacles. Your shyness isn't a flaw to hide its raw material for courage. Those awkward silences aren't failures, they're drills for presence. Even rejection, the universal dating dread, isn't a dead end, it's the barbell that strengthens your emotional core. The ancient Stoics called this antifragility, the paradoxical truth that some things don't just survive stress, they require it to evolve. Take rejection, a word that makes most daters flinch. The average person interprets a no as proof of inadequacy, spiraling into self-doubt. But the Stoic reframe, every rejection is data, not destiny. Picture two job hunters, one devastated by each application rejection, the other analyzing feedback to refine their approach. Dating operates on the same principle. When you start viewing no's as course corrections rather than condemnations, something shifts. A client named Elena turned this insight into action. After being ghosted, she created a reaction ritual. 1. Acknowledge the sting. This feels disappointing. 2. Analyze neutrally. Did I act with integrity? 3. Add to her lessons learned list. Now I know to notice vague planners earlier. Within months, her dating journal revealed a pattern. The men who faded fast were emotionally unavailable, saving her from deeper heartbreak. That's antifragility in action. Rejection didn't weaken her, it sharpened her discernment. Now consider social anxiety, the obstacle countless daters believe disqualifies them from connection. The Stoic approach: stop fighting the nerves, ally with them. Just as firefighters train in controlled burns, you can use discomfort as your simulator. A technique borrowed from cognitive behavioral therapy which shares Stoic roots, the exposure ladder. Start small, smile at a barista. Progress to asking a stranger for directions. Graduate to giving one unscripted compliment daily. Each rung is manageable, but collectively, they rewire your brain's threat response. One man documented his journey from avoiding eye contact to hosting dinner parties, not by eliminating anxiety, but by proving to himself he could function with it. The brilliance of this framework lies in its universality. Awkward at flirting, reframe those cringeworthy moments as necessary reps, like a comedian bombing on stage to hone timing. Struggling with dating apps, view each mediocre chat as a chance to practice concise communication. Remember Cotto's brevity. Even bad dates become comic material or clarity boosters. One woman's TERRIBLE Chinese letter Chinese blind date, where the man brought his mother who critiqued her posture, became her litmus test. If I can laugh about this later, future awkwardness won't break me. History offers striking examples. Epictetus, born a slave, turned his physical bondage into mental liberation. His very limitations became his classroom. Applied to dating, your perceived weaknesses, whether introversion, past heartbreak, or unconventional looks, aren't flaws. They're the unique contours of your growth path. Think of the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks aren't hidden. They're highlighted as part of the object's history and beauty. Practical steps for applying this today. 1. Name your obstacles. Write down 3 dating challenges, e.g., fear of being boring. 2. Design drills for each. Create a low-stakes practice, e.g., tell an odd fact about yourself on the next date. 3. Debrief post-interaction. Note what you learned, not just how you felt. The obstacle isn't just in the way, it is the way. That first date where you spilled wine. It taught you recovery. The match who unmatched after your nerdy passion rant. They filtered themselves out. Even loneliness, when approached with curiosity rather than desperation, becomes the soil where self-connection grows. This is the ultimate Stoic dating hack. When you stop resisting discomfort and start leveraging it, you don't just survive the journey, you evolve through it. Your dating struggles were never holding you back. They were sculpting you into someone who no longer needs to chase love from a place of lack, but attracts it from a place of wholeness. And that's a transformation no smooth sailing romance could ever deliver. Rejection doesn't have to leave you shivering in its wake. It can be the cold plunge that wakes you up to your own resilience. The Stoics knew this intimately. When faced with snubs, betrayals, or exile, they didn't just endure adversity, they ritualized their response to it. You can do the same by creating a post-rejection ritual, a deliberate sequence that transforms the sting of no into fuel for growth. Here's how to engineer a ritual that doesn't just soothe the ache, but actively repurposes it into power. Start with the body to reset the mind. Within an hour of receiving rejection, whether it's a ghosting, a breakup, or a let's just be friends, take a cold shower. Not a timid splash, but a full 60 seconds underwater, cold enough to make your breath catch. This isn't masochism, it's neuroscience. The shock triggers a flood of noradrenaline, snapping your system out of rumination mode. As your body rallies to meet the physical challenge, it whispers a visceral truth: you can handle discomfort. The Stoic philosopher Cleanthes famously worked as a water carrier to toughen his body while studying with Zeno. Your cold shower is the modern equivalent, proving rejection's chill won't drown you. While your skin still tingles, move to journaling with ruthless objectivity. Grab a notebook and divide the page into 3 sections: facts, fictions, and fire. In facts, jot only what's indisputable. They didn't reply to my last 2 texts. They said they're not ready for commitment. No interpretations, just raw data. Under fictions, expose the stories you've layered on top. They think I'm desperate. I'll never find someone better. This separation alone is revelatory. You'll notice how quickly your mind spins yarns from scraps. Now the pivotal column, fire. Here, ask, what can this rejection ignite in me? Maybe it's finally joining that hiking group to meet outdoorsy partners, or setting firmer boundaries early on. One client's fire entry read, "Now I know to walk away at the first disrespectful joke, no more second chances." That's alchemy, turning leaden rejection into golden clarity. Next, the symbolic release. Ancient Stoics wrote letters they never sent to process emotions. You'll create a modern version. Take a single sticky note and write the rejection's core message in 5 words max, not chosen. A different life paths. Then choose an action that physically transforms it. Burn it in a ceramic bowl safely. Tear it into confetti or dissolve it under running water. The act isn't about banishing the memory, but embodying your agency over its meaning. A tech worker in Seattle keeps a tiny metal bin on his desk for this ritual. He calls it his rejection forge, where disappointments get melted down into determination. Conclude with forward motion. Rejection thrives in stagnation, so within 24 hours, take one tangible step that proves your worth isn't tied to the outcome. Message someone new without over-editing. Sign up for a cooking class you've postponed. Donate old relationship clutter to charity. The action itself matters less than its symbolic weight. You're recalibrating your brain's reward system to associate rejection with momentum, not paralysis. This ritual works because it mirrors nature's wisdom. Forests need occasional fires to clear deadwood and stimulate new growth. Your dating life operates on the same principle. Rejection burns away what wasn't meant to stay, leaving fertile ground for what's truly yours. The cold shock, the honest dissection, the ceremonial release, each step rebuilds you into someone who doesn't just withstand no, but wields it as a tool. Because the ultimate victory isn't avoiding rejection, it's reaching a place where every no feels like a nudge toward your authentic north. Scrolling through social media, it's impossible to escape the highlight reels: couples grinning over candlelit dinners, surprise bouquets with hash relationship goals, that viral video of a stadium proposal. Meanwhile, you're staring at a silent phone after what felt like a decent first date. This constant exposure to curated romance creates what psychologists call social comparison poisoning, the toxic habit of measuring your raw, unfiltered dating experiences against others' polished moments. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus saw this trap coming 2,000 years ago when he warned, "He who compares himself to others will never know peace." The damage happens in subtle ways. Every time you wonder why your relationships don't mimic a rom-com montage, or why your dating app matches seem less exciting than your friends', you're handing over your contentment to external benchmarks. It's like trying to enjoy home-made soup while obsessing over restaurant photos. You stop tasting what's actually nourishing in your own bowl. Modern dating amplifies this with endless opportunities to compare. Instagram stories of romantic vacations, TikTok couples sharing how he surprises me, routines, even well-meaning friends asking, "Why are you still single?" As if it's a problem to solve, Musonius offered an antidote: radical self-sufficiency. Not isolation, but the cultivated ability to derive your sense of worth from internal standards rather than relational milestones. Picture two gardeners, one constantly peeking over the fence to critique their sprouts against the neighbor's blooms, the other tending their plot with focused care. Both might grow flowers, but only one enjoys the process. The Stoic approach to dating mirrors this. When you stop measuring your journey by others' apparent progress, you reclaim the space to define what meaningful connection looks like for you. Practical steps start with pruning your inputs. For the next week, mute or unfollow accounts that trigger comparison spirals, not out of bitterness, but to create breathing room for your own standards to emerge. Replace scrolling time with journaling prompts like, "What did I genuinely enjoy about my last date regardless of outcome?" Or, "Which of my single qualities would I admire in a friend?" These questions redirect your gaze inward, where true contentment lives. Another technique is the comparison reality check. When you catch yourself envying someone's relationship, list 3 unglamorous realities they likely face: middle-of-the-night arguments, mismatched libidos, financial tensions. This isn't cynicism, it's perspective. Even the most couple goals pair has unposted struggles, just as your dating life has unshared victories. Musonius taught that happiness comes from aligning with nature, and human nature includes both connection and challenge. The deepest work happens when you identify your inherited scripts about where I should be. Maybe it's the belief you must be engaged by 30, or that serious relationships require daily texting. Write these down, then trace their origins: family expectations, rom-com tropes, a college friend's seemingly perfect marriage. Hold each up to Stoic scrutiny. Does this standard serve my peace? Is it within my control? Like editing a cluttered closet, you'll keep only what truly fits. Here's the paradox few discuss. Social comparison doesn't just distort your view of others, it warps your self-perception. That quiet Tuesday night date where you discuss childhood books might not make your feed, but it could hold more genuine connection than any staged sunset kiss. The Stoics measured relationships by depth, not decoration. When you stop keeping score against invisible competitors, you start noticing the poetry in your own story, the inside jokes, the shared vulnerabilities, the tiny moments where someone truly saw you. That's where real relationship goals are born. Imagine your phone buzzing with yet another Instagram notification, another perfectly filtered couple grinning over brunch, another #date night that puts your last awkward coffee meetup to shame. This constant drip of comparison is modern dating's silent saboteur, fueling overthinking by making you measure your raw, unfiltered journey against everyone else's highlight reels. The Stoics never faced algorithmic envy, but their antidote to poisonous comparisons, digital temperance, is more vital now than ever. Start with a ruthless audit of your digital ecosystem. Open your social apps and ask Stoicism's foundational question: is this within my control? You can't stop others from posting their romantic sunsets, but you can curate what floods your mental space. For 1 week, track which accounts leave you feeling depleted versus inspired. That travel blogger couple who seem to live in a perpetual honeymoon, mute them not out of bitterness but self-preservation. Replace their slot with accounts like at Daily Stoic or historians dissecting ancient love letters. Your feed should be a gym for your mindset, not a gallery of unattainable ideals. The real game changer, transforming scroll time into study time. Every time you reflexively reach for your phone post, date whether to dissect a conversation or numb the wait for a reply. Redirect that energy to Seneca's letters or Epictetus' discourses. Keep a digital copy anchored to your home screen where Instagram used to be. One client replaced her before bed scroll with just 5 minutes of Marcus Aurelius' meditations and noticed something profound. The less she consumed others' relationships, the more present she became in her own. Without realizing it, she'd been treating dating like a spectator sport rather than an active participation. For those thinking, but social media helps me learn about dating, try this Stoic reframe. Wisdom isn't found in observing others' relationships, it's forged through reflecting on your own experiences. Keep a digital detox journal where you log insights from real interactions, not curated posts. After a date, jot down what you actually felt, the nervous excitement when they laughed at your quirky joke, the quiet comfort of shared silence, instead of comparing it to viral meet-cute reels. Over time, you'll build a personal philosophy of connection far richer than any algorithm could offer. The most potent detox strategy mirrors ancient Stoic practice, scheduled disconnection. Designate 1 day weekly as your analog dating Sabbath. No apps, no stalking, no post-mortem chats with friends analyzing texts. Use those hours for activities that root you in your body and values. Cooking a meal mindfully, hiking without documenting the view, handwriting a letter to an old friend. This isn't escapism, it's recalibration. Just as Musonius Rufus taught that luxury weakens resilience, constant digital stimulation erodes your capacity for genuine presence, the very trait that makes connections flourish. What makes this approach uniquely Stoic isn't just cutting back. It's replacing mindless consumption with intentional cultivation. Where others might advise deleting apps entirely, Stoicism recognizes that technology isn't inherently harmful, it's our judgments about it that cause suffering. The goal isn't to live like a hermit, but to engage with digital spaces as a philosopher, selectively, purposefully, always asking, does this serve my growth? When you do scroll, do it with the discernment of a curator assembling an exhibition, not a bystander absorbing whatever flashes by. The magic lies in what happens when you detox not just your screen time, but your comparative mindset. Over time, you'll catch yourself mid-spiral. Their relationship looks perfect and counter with Stoic objectivity. Every garden has weeds, theirs just aren't in the frame. You'll start seeing social media for what it is, a museum of facades, while real love is built in the unphotographed moments, the tissues brought during a cold, the silent solidarity during a loss. And when you finally meet someone worthy of your energy, you'll do so with eyes trained not on others' timelines, but on the unscripted, imperfect, utterly human connection unfolding right in front of you. Picture your hand hovering over your phone, eyes locked on that text message you sent 4 hours ago. Still no reply. Your stomach tightens, your breath shortens, and before you know it, you're drafting 3 different follow-ups in your head. Now imagine if, instead of spiraling, you had a mental toolkit ready to deploy. A set of pre-rehearsed Stoic responses designed to intercept those reactions before they hijack your peace. That's the power of prosody, the ancient Stoic practice of attention to your impulses. It's not about suppressing emotions, it's about creating space between trigger and reaction, so you respond from wisdom rather than panic. The Stoics didn't wait for chaos to strike before deciding how to act. They trained in advance. Epictetus compared this to archers practicing in the dark. By repeating the motions until they became second nature, they could hit their mark even when visibility was low. Your dating life operates on the same principle. When someone takes hours to reply, when plans fall through last minute, when a date laughs just a little too politely at your joke, these are your moments of low visibility. Without preparation, you'll default to anxiety or self-doubt, but with prosody, you've already mapped your response routes. Start by identifying your top 3 dating triggers, those scenarios that send your mind into overdrive. Maybe it's being left on read, or hearing, "I'm not sure what I'm looking for," or sensing lukewarm energy during a conversation. For each, craft a Stoic mantra that anchors you. For slow replies, their timeline doesn't define my worth. For vague intentions, I listen to actions, not ambiguity. For awkward silences, this pause is part of the dance. These aren't affirmations, they're strategic reminders of reality, echoing Marcus Aurelius' advice. The obstacle becomes the way. Role-playing is where theory meets muscle memory. Rehearse your triggers aloud while looking in the mirror or with a trusted friend who can simulate the scenarios. When practicing a slow reply scenario, physically place your phone face down and say your chosen phrase with conviction. Notice how your body reacts, the tension in your shoulders, the urge to reach for the phone, and consciously relax into the discomfort. This isn't about scripting conversations for others. It's about programming your nervous system to default to calm. History offers a striking example in Cato the Younger, who famously trained himself to respond to insults with silence or humor. When a man spat in his face during a political debate, Cato simply wiped his cheek and continued speaking as if nothing had happened. His secret: he'd rehearsed worse in private. You might not face public humiliation on dates, but the principle holds. By pre-committing to graceful responses, you strip triggering moments of their power. Practical implementation looks like creating if-then protocols. If my date cancels last minute, then I'll respond with, "Thanks for letting me know. Let's reconnect when your schedule settles." If someone ghosts after a great conversation, then I'll open my Stoic journal and list 3 lessons from the interaction. These preset decisions free you from decision fatigue in emotionally charged moments. One woman kept these protocols on a note card in her wallet. After 6 months, she realized she'd internalized them so thoroughly that reaching for the card became unnecessary. The brilliance of prosody lies in its dual focus. It trains you to both notice your rising impulses and redirect them before they spiral. Like a sailor spotting storm clouds and adjusting the sails before the wind hits, you're not at the mercy of emotional weather. Over time, the practice reshapes your dating landscape entirely. Triggers that once left you sleepless become mere blips on the radar, and you'll start to recognize the most empowering truth of all. Your peace was never contingent on others' behavior. It was always yours to guard, one pre-committed response at a time. Imagine your mind as a control room with flashing warning lights, every unanswered text, every awkward silence triggering another alarm. Now picture replacing that chaos with a Stoic response flowchart, a clear, step-by-step guide for navigating dating stress points with the wisdom of ancient philosophers as your anchors. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about wiring your brain to default to clarity when uncertainty strikes. Let's build your flowchart together, starting with the first red light: "They left me on read." Your initial reaction might be to spiral into self-doubt or send a follow-up message drenched in anxiety. But the Stoic path begins with a simple question at the top of your decision tree: is their response within my control? If the answer is no, and it always is, the flowchart directs you to Epictetus' anchor. What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about them. Below it, a single actionable step. Open your Stoic journal and list 3 productive ways to redirect this energy. Maybe it's finally organizing that cluttered closet or drafting the opening chapter of the novel you've postponed. The key is converting emotional fuel into forward motion. Next scenario, the date felt awkward. Instead of replaying every cringeworthy moment, your flowchart's first node asks, did I act with authenticity? If yes, the path leads to Marcus Aurelius' reminder: you have power over your mind, not outside events. This isn't about dismissing discomfort, but reframing it. The next box prompts: identify one genuine moment of connection, however small. Perhaps it was when you both laughed at the terrible restaurant playlist, or when they lit up discussing their passion for beekeeping. By training your focus on these fragments of authenticity, you rewire your brain to spotlight meaningful interactions over perceived missteps. Now let's tackle the ultimate stressor: they said they're not interested. The flowchart's diamond-shaped decision point splits 2 ways. Path 1 asks, did I compromise my values to please them? If no, the arrow points to Seneca's truth: rejection is redirection. Below it, a ritual: light a candle and write their name on a slip of paper, then burn it safely while reciting, I release what isn't mine to keep. If the answer is yes, the path diverges to Musonius Rufus' teaching: we suffer when we expect reality to conform to our desires. Here, the action step is pragmatic. Update your dating manifesto with 1 new boundary. This transforms rejection into curriculum. For those moments when comparison steals your joy, when you're bombarded with engagement announcements or couple goals, post your flowchart's anchor is a quote from Epictetus, often overlooked: he is wise who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. The accompanying exercise, a reverse gratitude list. Jot down 3 freedoms your single season grants that partnered friends might envy: spontaneous travel, uninterrupted creative time, the thrill of meeting someone new. This isn't about resentment, it's about rebalancing perspective. The genius of this system lies in its adaptability. You might add a branch for slow fade situations with Cicero's wisdom: silence is the residue of fear. The action, a single message clear as a Stoic maxim, then radio silence: I appreciate honesty over hesitation, wishing you well. Or perhaps a quadrant for post-date over-analysis anchored by Marcus Aurelius: you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. The corresponding step, a 20-minute walk without your phone, syncing your breath to your footsteps until mental chatter stills. To make this tangible, sketch your flowchart on actual paper. The physical act of writing engraves these neural pathways. Use red arrows for stress triggers, green for Stoic quotes, and blue for actions. Keep it folded in your wallet or saved as your phone's lock screen. Over time, you'll internalize the routes until responding with Stoic calm becomes as automatic as checking your reflection in a mirror. What you're really building is a cognitive override system, one that intercepts dating's chaos and transforms it into structured opportunities for growth. Each stress point becomes a chance to practice wisdom, each disappointment a lesson in discernment. And when you finally meet someone worthy of your energy, you'll arrive not as a bundle of reactions, but as someone who's mastered the most attractive trait of all: unshakable presence. Marcus Aurelius began each day with a simple but revolutionary practice. He'd remind himself of fundamental truths about human nature, his purpose, and the challenges he might face. Now imagine applying that same intentionality to your dating life. Instead of rushing into dates frazzled or distracted, you could anchor yourself in clarity, starting with what the Stoics called the morning preparation. This isn't about reciting affirmations in the mirror. It's a strategic recalibration of your mindset to approach dating from a place of strength, not scarcity. Here's how it works. Before your next date, whether it's a coffee meetup or a video chat, set aside 10 minutes for what ancient Stoics called premeditatio. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and mentally rehearse two things: your intentions and potential obstacles. Begin by articulating your core intention, not an outcome like "they'll like me," but a principle you can control, such as "I will listen with genuine curiosity," or "I will honor my boundaries with kindness." This distinction is crucial. You're not scripting the date's trajectory, you're defining how you want to show up regardless of how the other person responds. Next, visualize challenges. Picture the conversation stalling, your date checking their phone, or feeling that familiar pang of self-doubt. Now, rehearse your Stoic response. Awkward silence is just an opportunity to breathe. Their distraction reflects their priorities, not my worth. This mental inoculation mirrors how athletes visualize setbacks before big games, not to invite failure, but to disarm its emotional power. When these moments arise in reality, they'll feel familiar rather than frightening. Now, integrate Marcus' practice of negative visualization, but with a dating twist. Imagine the date ending with no spark, no second meeting, and ask yourself, will this matter in a month? The answer isn't always no. Some connections leave lasting marks, but most first dates are forgettable blips in hindsight. This zoomed-out perspective shrinks anxiety to its true size. Take inspiration from how Seneca prepared for social engagements. He'd remind himself that some people would be rude, others boring, and that his peace didn't depend on their behavior. Apply this to dating by scripting your own pre-date reminders. A client named Jake keeps his in his phone notes. 1. I am here to discover, not perform. 2. Chemistry can't be forced, only witnessed. 3. Their reaction is information, not validation. These mantras act like mental armor against approval-seeking impulses. Notice what they don't say. Nothing about results, only process. That's the Stoic secret. When you focus on the quality of your engagement rather than the outcome, you paradoxically become more magnetic. For those who think this sounds overly rigid, consider the alternative. Most of us spend more time picking outfits than preparing our minds, then wonder why we feel emotionally whiplashed by every mixed signal. The morning preparation isn't about manufacturing a persona. It's about stripping away the layers of insecurity that prevent your authentic self from showing up. Like a musician tuning their instrument before a performance, you're aligning your inner state to express yourself clearly. Try pairing this with a physical ritual to ground the practice. One woman lights a candle while reviewing her intentions, then blows it out as a symbolic release of expectations. A man in my workshop does 5 minutes of box breathing, inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 while repeating Epictetus' question, "What's within my power today?" These tactile elements bridge philosophy and physiology, signaling to your nervous system that you're entering intentional space. The proof of this practice reveals itself in hindsight. You'll start noticing patterns. Dates where you clung to your intentions feel centered, even if the connection fizzled, while those where you winged it often left you ruminating. Over time, you'll develop your own Stoic dating maxims, phrases that slice through anxiety like, "No one can distract me without my permission," or "Vulnerability is courage, not weakness." These become your inner compass, recalibrating you toward presence when overthinking threatens to pull you under. Ultimately, morning preparation isn't about controlling the date, it's about governing your own mind. When you arrive rooted in principles rather than desperation for results, something shifts. You laugh more freely, listen more deeply, and project a quiet assurance that no pickup line could replicate. And ironically, that's often when connections take root, not because you manipulated the interaction, but because you stopped trying to and finally let the moment unfold as it should. We've journeyed through 13 powerful Stoic secrets. each unfolding into actionable insights that transform dating from an anxiety minefield into a playground of self-discovery. From the foundational dichotomy of control to the life-altering practice of Memento Mori, these tools aren't just theories, they're mental muscles waiting to be flexed. Let's revisit them briefly, not as a checklist, but as a reminder of the armor you now carry into every interaction. First, the unshakable focus on what's truly yours to govern, your effort, your integrity, your presence. Then, negative visualizations, counterintuitive magic, rehearsing rejection to drain its sting. Amor Fati taught us to love every twist of fate, even mismatches, as guideposts. We mastered the view from above to shrink drama to its true size, and spoke with Cotto's precision to cut through modern dating's ambiguity. Voluntary discomfort became our training ground, proving we're more resilient than our fears suggest. The process journal shifted success metrics from outcomes to growth, while our dating virtues manifesto kept us anchored in character over chemistry. We turned obstacles into fuel with Stoic antifragility, crafted personalized response flowcharts, and ritualized rejection recovery. Finally, morning preparation ensured we entered every date as grounded philosophers, not desperate performers. Now here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, adopt just one of these practices, not as a spectator, but as a Stoic in action. If you choose negative visualization, mentally rehearse 3 awkward scenarios before your next date. If it's the process journal, document 3 micro wins post-interaction. Notice what shifts when you engage with dating as a laboratory for self-mastery rather than a referendum on your worth. Then return here and share your breakthrough in the comments, not just the results, but the messy, real-time lessons. How did discomfort surprise you? Where did clarity emerge? Your story could be the nudge someone else needs to begin their own transformation. Epictetus once told his students, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This isn't about perfecting dating, it's about uncovering the unshakable version of yourself that exists beneath the overthinking. The right connections will find you not when you've manipulated every variable, but when you've stopped needing to. So step forward, not with guarantee of outcomes, but with the quiet certainty that no result can derail your peace. The world needs more people who date like Stoics, fully present, radically authentic, and free from the tyranny of what if. Your journey begins now.